It did occur to me that that's my car bleeping. Still thinks I've got the handbrake on when I haven't. It's great to have a car that makes an alert sound. I don't know if there's anything more irritating than the alert sound. I use the term very loosely when I say alert sound because it can be anything. It could be a deep, throaty bong, or it could be a very high-pitched, irritating noise. So yeah, I'm trying something new. I've got a microphone now attached to me, and already it's annoying me a little bit, the cable off it. So it's a little microphone, and I'm trying to improve the quality of the sound. There is some background noise, which is, I think I've said before, is fine, but I'd also like my dulcet tones to be nice and clear. I think especially if you're wearing headphones, a lot of wind noise and things of that nature can be a little bit irritating, I think, and if I'm not irritating enough, So I've come to do it's called the Beijing turn now. Do a little U-turn on the dual carriageway, and luckily there's no wagons here today, so I'm hopeful. I could pull that off. That was pretty nice actually. I'm just accelerating away down towards Dublin. I'm actually passing the headquarters of a store called Lidl. I think some people might pronounce it Lidl. I don't know who's right, but I'm going to pronounce it Lidl. It suits me. I think if you're in the US and if you're in Europe, you'll have heard of the chain. This particular headquarters, by the way, is the one for Ireland. It isn't the big headquarters, obviously. And it's a lovely building, and there's quite an interesting story to the site. Going back 20 years ago, there was very few supermarkets in Ireland, and Lidl decided to expand, I think, into Ireland, and they wanted to build a store. It's actually next to where the headquarters is now. The site was disused before they purchased it, and it was a metal powders company. I think what's pretty interesting about it is when Lidl bought the land, they bought this factory as well, and there was quite a clean-up operation, I understand. I think anything that's in a powder form is the potential to be explosive. I understand chocolate can be particularly nasty, and has been known to explode in the correct environment. So it's a metal powders company, and Lidl bought the site probably at a reasonable price. It's probably a little known fact that Lidl actually buy the land underneath the stores, which is quite an unusual thing for these companies. Normally they lease the place where they're located. So they bought the land and they bought this factory, and they had to pay for the cleanup. So then the next step for Lidl, and I think they've got quite a team of architects and designers and things of that nature, and they had to come up with some plans. Sorry, I've slowed down a bit there because I found myself in the wrong lane, going around about 12 to 50. I'm never in the wrong lane, I'm always in the correct lane, but today traffic was a little bit heavier than usual. Schools are not back in yet. Maybe it's just because it's Thursday. So they have a team of planners, and they came up with a design for the store to be approved by the planning authorities, and it was very interesting that they pretty much was put on a merry dance by the planning authority, and I think the council as well. I think there was some resistance to allow a store in this location. It was considered might affect, it was never said, but I think it was considered that it might affect the other shops and stuff that are around, might impact them financially. Now, it wasn't said directly, but I suppose councillors, people of that sort of profession, represent the people, and maybe there was some pressure to make it pretty difficult for Lidl to get planning permission. I think it took some time, and I think it was years before they did get planning permission, and the final piece in the puzzle that they had to provide, I think they had to change the colour of the tiles on the roof, all sorts of silly stuff, but the final piece in the puzzle was for the very large car park. They had to have some sort of storm drain, a 1 in 30-year storm drain or something, to prevent the car park flooding, which I understand are duly complied with and constructed as part of the building of the store. And so the store was born, and Lidl's came to this little part of Dublin, and so it was for a few years. There's a bit of minor expansion. I think fresh bread is always good, and it smells amazing. So yeah, I think they did a small expansion to the store to accommodate some ovens, and yeah, so you could buy bread there as well, and slice it in a slicer if you want it sliced, which was nice, you know. I think pretty much the design and layout of the stores are the same globally. I think in the US they're very similar as well. There are some German products in the store, some very nice cheeky German red wines, but you know, there's quite a range of products from local produce and big brand labels, and I think the common theme is it's incredibly cheap. Yeah, the prices are pretty good. They do stock some non-grocery items, non-food items, but they can be a little bit inconsistent. You know, if you're looking for something, you probably won't find it, and then if you're just browsing, you probably think, oh, well, I could do with that. Very recently, I purchased myself a little cheeky frying pan, a non-stick frying pan. I already had a frying pan, but it was rather large, and I was looking for something a little bit smaller. And yeah, they had one, so it was quite handy. Like I say, if there's something you're particularly looking for, you're probably not going to find it. And they rotate the items that they sell quite regularly. Anyway, in terms of where the headquarters is today, so I fast forward a few years, and part of the site wasn't used where they built this Lidl. And it was decided we were going to build a headquarters there. Well, in due course they did. It's quite a tall building. It looks quite nice. There's a lot of glazing, typical of a very modern office building, I suppose. And they also, interestingly enough, knocked down the original Lidl store and built one just across from it on the same site. That was pretty much like a flagship store. It looks really nice. I'm not sure if it's the biggest in Ireland. It doesn't feel the biggest, and I've been in quite a few, but it does look nice. And of an evening, maybe not when it's fully dark, but when it's going dark, you know, both the office block and the store look pretty impressive. And I suppose if I'm talking about budget stores, and I know I've spoken at length about Argos and Iceland, there's one chain of stores that I think is worthy of a mention, because the founder of the store recently died, aged 88. And it's Pennies. It's a name synonymous in Ireland with good value clothing items. You're compared to the other mainstream brands and stores, it's incredibly cheap, and the quality is good. It's not really scrimping on quality. Yeah, it's pretty good, and I think in the UK it's known as a Primark, I think. In Spain it's Pennies. I think in the US it's Primark as well. There was a little issue around JC Pennies, which I believe is a US brand, which I think was already in the UK, or it was known in the UK, or it was trademarked there, so they had to come up with a different name. But it's the two names anyway are synonymous with incredibly low price items. They've a place in Spain. I understand they've now got a flagship store in Spain, a real big store, and it's very popular where the economy is. Yeah, it's interesting how people have less money in Spain than most parts of Europe. It's, you know, so obviously it's a store that really appeals to the full breadth of Europeans, and I understand they're making good inroads into the US as well, where there is a big demand for inexpensive clothing of good quality, of course. You know, so some very interesting facts about the founder who died recently. He was quite a frugal man, I think, and I don't think he would be offended if he heard me saying that, if he was still alive. But you know, this is probably the reason he made Pennies so great. It was well known that he would drive from Dublin to Belfast. It's about an hour and a half drive, if there was shirts being sold in Belfast a few pounds cheaper for himself, like, yeah, he would actually make that journey to save some money. And to be honest, I found myself crossing the border occasionally. A border that really shouldn't be there, but that's a topic for another episode. Because there's a different currency in use there, and because of markets, I don't know, the volumes of stuff. You can find stuff, and maybe a bigger range of stuff in the northern parts of the island, where they're using sterling, pound sterling, a British currency. He also used to travel in an inexpensive way, but he had a fear of being kidnapped. In the 1970s, quite a few high-profile Irish businessmen were kidnapped. I think Ben Dunn was probably the most famous of them all, and if you certainly listen to some of my early episode, Dunn's Stores, I do mention Ben Dunn. But yeah, he was kidnapped for a time. I think it was 1981. It's a long time ago anyway now, but that was a real risk to businessmen in the 70s and 80s, and he basically he would wear disguises, and he had bodyguards, and I think even his staff didn't know what he looked like. He made sure that you could pretty much walk through the store and no one would see him. So and I sort of like that a little bit. I mean, I've always wanted to be incredibly rich and not be recognised. That's sort of the holy grail, and there are a few people on the planet who have pulled that off. I certainly don't want my money to be based upon my appearance or my celebrity-ness, as it were. So yeah, I'd sort of like that, to be extremely rich, but yeah, nobody knowing who I were. I'm not saying I'd be scruffy. I don't want to be scruffy. That's not me. But I want to sort of blend in a little bit in a supermarket, or I don't know, in a shopping centre such as Dundrum, which I'm just coming up to now. And nobody would recognise it. I mean, the odd person, it might be a little compliment. Maybe the more geekish people will go, "I know your voice." Yeah, that'd be quite nice. But I'd like a line, it to stop there, really. I don't want too much fandom. I think that's for other people, unless it benefits me in some way. So that's it. Yeah. So that was Lidl, with a little smattering and smattering of pennies. Cheap stores.